For me, BTSR was a time not only of excellent academic preparation for ministry, but incredible practical preparation for ministry. I loved that our professors were all folks who had spent time in congregations and loved church life, and that the seminary had such an emphasis on congregational life. Even though when I came to seminary, I thought I would do anything but work for a church, I loved that this love of this organization, this institution, this body of Christ was such a significant part of our seminary education. Lots of people ask me about what it's like to be a woman in ministry and how seminary prepared me, or what it's like to be serving in churches as a woman in ministry. But quite frankly, that's not been a part of my story. Sure, there are lots of places that don't call women and still say no, and there's a struggle that many women experience and a ceiling of sorts that we experience. All I knew was that God was calling me to serve, and my job was to figure out how to do that in authentic ways, with as much integrity and grace, and with as much of a servant spirit as I possibly can. And that's what I am doing. I'm really glad to have been at a place where it was never a question of whether or not women could or couldn't. It was, how do we help you do this? And that's what I needed. There are certainly days that make your hair curl and steam come out of your ears when you are working in ministry, I think in any capacity, but certainly as a solo pastor. But I still pinch myself that I get to do this job and that I'm entrusted with so much. The days where I get to stand at someone's bedside and pray with their family and call them beloved and watch them take their last breaths while we celebrate the goodness of their life and the faith that they held, and we celebrate that they are living with God eternally. To be that presence in the room is such a gift. Or to be at youth camp with kids doing absolutely crazy, silly things, being in relationship with them and showing them a side of what it means to be a pastor, what it means to be a minister, what it means to be a person of faith, and to be real and vulnerable with kids while they are making important faith decisions is such a gift. There's just no other job like this, and I know how fortunate I am.
BTSR prepared me for where I am in my current ministry context by really not giving me just a theological education. There's, when you go to seminary, you think it's going to be theology, it's going to be languages, and all of that was very crucial to my studies, to my sermon prep, to Bible studies. But BTSR also provided me with a practical education, hands-on, what to do in the field. There was a lot of what I would basically can describe as field preparation and classwork. So I could take classes about youth ministry. How do you deal with parents or planning an event? The preaching classes, the practical preaching classes were amazing, and I think that was one of the biggest classes that impacted me at BTSR. So yeah, it was a mix of the things that you kind of expect and you have an idea about at BTSR, and then or theological education, but then there's more with these practical application classes. I'm in ministry not for success and not for money. I'm in ministry because you see these lives touched. In my field, especially in youth ministry, you get to see youth in this formative phase of their life really start to make big decisions about who they are, what they believe, what path they're going to set themselves on for the rest of their lives. And it's so interesting to see these students go on to graduate and come back and work for you as an intern, or to go and explore theological education themselves, or just maybe to come back and say, Dane, I really loved what we had at our student ministry, and that's affected me as I've taken that next step. And so to see the decisions that students make on a spiritual level or in a professional level has been very impactful, and And I think those moments, those little mile markers in life, there's so many that come when you work at a church, that it's great to be there as people experience and celebrate and work through those. If I had a student come to me and say, that, hey, I'm exploring theological education, I'm working through a sense of call, maybe into ministry, I would direct them to BTSR because there's a sense of community there where people know each other and they are invested in one another. The relationship that I had with my professors was deep and lasting, and I think that there's a personal touch there. Small classes are a very good thing in the sense that you're getting that contact with people on an intimate level. And also, right now it's a place where there's a lot going on in the sense of people that they're bringing in, St. John's Bible, and speakers that they bring in, as well as there's an online component where, if you're young and in college, you're probably used to that traditional style, but lots of people need to get jobs, or maybe they want to jump into an internship or something that might take them out of the classroom. It's good to know that they can still have an education, even if they can't be in the classroom all the time.
I really liked BTSR's heritage. I liked why it started, its roots. I appreciated all of my professors and their backgrounds. I actually wrote my senior thesis at Mary Washington on Molly Marshall, who had worked at Southern Seminary in Louisville and had basically been asked to resign. Perhaps she was fired, I can't remember, because she was teaching women that they could be equals in ministry to men. And I appreciated her story and the stories of so many of our seminary professors who came to BTSR to further the kingdom and the message of Christ without a lot of the barriers that seemed to be being placed on especially women in other seminaries. I thought, I'm working in social work now, and I'd love to further my career with more education, and a master's in social work would be perfect, and a master in divinity would work well with my interests. So from there, I just knew that I wanted to learn more about the program. When I came to work at Cedarfield, I knew that I wanted to use my MDiv, but my role is a social worker. But I can't help but use my Master of Divinity when I think back to what I learned in pastoral care class. So, for example, as the resident life services manager, we do group counseling for bereavement, for memory support, and for movement disorder or Parkinsonian-like disorders. And residents have been very responsive to those new groups that have started since I started working here. And had it not been for the skills that I gained in pastoral care class and also through my internship at Virginia Institute of Pastoral Care, as well as the classes that I took at VCU, I wouldn't be confident enough to have started these groups. I wouldn't have the knowledge base that I needed. And it has certainly worked out in my career to do those things here.